Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Town of Hilton Head Island Finance and Administrative Committee for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. Krista, have we complied with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we have.
Krista, please call the committee roll.
Certainly, sir. Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Stanford?
Here.
Chairman Lennox?
Here. In addition to the 4 committee members, we also have joining us online Councilwoman Tammy Becker and Councilman David Ames. Welcome, Tammy and David. Before you is the agenda. Are there any recommended changes from staff? Hearing none, are there any recommended changes from the committee? Hearing none.
Move
All
for
those in
approval of the
favor,
agenda.
please. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. We have meeting minutes from September 21st, 2021. Are there any additions or deletions?
Move for approval.
Moved.
Second.
Is there a second? And second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Krista, do we have any appearance or comments from citizens?
No, sir, we do not have any appearance by citizens or citizens who submitted comments. Citizens had the opportunity to submit comments in writing until 12 p.m. this afternoon, as well as sign up to submit and address the committee today until 12 p.m. this afternoon. We have nobody here to submit anything.
Thank you. Therefore, we'll move on to new business. We have 2 agenda items under new business. I'd like to call on Ahmad Ward to give us an update on the business and master plans for Mitchellville Freedom Park. Welcome, Ahmad.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox, and thank you to the Finance Administrative Committee and other town council members for allowing us this opportunity to speak to you about historic Mitchellville Freedom Park. We are pleased that Town of Hilton Head continues to have Mitchellville as one of their top priorities in their plans, and we are thankful for the continued support from the council and the town in the things that Mitchellville is trying to do. I do have a presentation, so I'm going to share my screen and then open the floor for any questions that may come up. So give me 1 second. Can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, great. So we're going to move forward. So as with everyone else, our plans in 2020, which is around the last time I talked to you, was to begin this campaign process to raise the $22.8 million needed to build the park, and then everything shut down. And so we had to recalibrate, move all of our program to digital, and try to restructure to make sure that when we did reopen, and I guess we're in a various stage of reopening now, we can do the things that we needed to do to move forward. I am pleased to say that we are in the middle of a feasibility study for the campaign, and we are on track to try to pull those pieces together. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. Since I spoke to you last, one of the most important things that happened to us was we received $50,000 from the African American Heritage Action Fund of the National Trust for Historic Preservation to work on an archaeology project that would map the entire site. Now, there were about 531 applicants that applied for this funding. Only 27 were chosen. We were the only site in South Carolina to receive this funding, and the only archaeological research grant to get this funding. It was a matching, so we had to come up with 50 on our own. So it's a $100,000 project to map the entire site that we're going to be building on. And so if you can see here, if you can see my cursor, this is the work that was done between November 2020 and the end of January 2021 to do sonar magnetometry, excuse me, and some geophysical research in the site area. So we did these in little quadrants to make sure that wherever we want to build, we are assured that we won't be going over something that is important or needs to be excavated before time. And so as in past years, Catherine Sieber, who's been our resident archaeologist since 2018, led this effort with a team of people from across the country to map the area out. And we will have that final report probably by the end of next month. And that'll serve as the blueprint as we move forward to try to build things in the least area site for Mitchellville. We found a couple of really interesting things while we were doing this. In the course of doing the research, we found some bricks that were actually discovered by Michael Trinkley in the excavation that happened in the 80s, but it had been covered up. We left it in the center area. If you're familiar with the park, in the middle of the loop, there's a little area there that was wooded and had underbrush. We were able to get that cleared to run research. And so when we found those bricks, we thought it was the foundation of a hearth, probably disconnected from one of the historic homes and used to cook food. We found some oyster shell deposits next to it that would have dated back towards Mitchellville times, roughly a little under 160 years earlier. Well, when Katie and her team tried to take those bricks out and put them in storage, we found out that that fixture went about 4 feet underground. As you can see here in this picture, this is an actual full-fledged hearth that we believe now goes against the grain what we know about Mitchellville research, and actually would have been connected to one of the homes. And we're not exactly sure, but this particular hearth might have been used to cook tabby, to make tabby so you can build other structures. So now our plans have changed just a little bit in this area. This is actually on the site that was supposed to be a stormwater retention pond. Well, that's out now, because this fixture has to stay. This will be the only remaining intact structure on the park site that we know of right now. And so at this moment, we recovered it to keep it safe for the time being until we can determine how it would be interpreted. So this will be a standing feature at Mitchellville Park going forward. So we are back to the drawing board to figure out what's the best way to show this and protect it. But we got to protect it. So this is not going to come out of the ground when the park is operational. This would be a key feature of what people will see when they come to see us. Along with that, we will actually add it to the Reconstruction Era National Historic Network. There are 66 other sites that are involved in this network, and this has been in the play probably since 2018. This allows us to share some promotion with the other sites. So when people go to one of the other reconstruction sites, they can hear about Mitchellville and vice versa. We think this is a big deal because Mitchellville would have been the rehearsal for Reconstruction and tells a very important story to the burgeoning tourism impact of Reconstruction in the Low Country area. And so this was a big thing for us to be associated with, and we're very proud that we're part of this network. So we continue to provide content virtually. Beginning of the year, we still couldn't be completely out in the park. Obviously, in February, the park, we were moving towards a closure, not quite closed yet. Well, we were coming out of a closure, but because still couldn't do things within reason at the park. Usually Freedom Day is about 250 people that come. And at that time, the park, I think the rules for the town parks were only about 50 in a gathering. So we did our Freedom Day virtually, and it was viewed by 1,500 people from around the country. And this was exploring the families of historic Mitchellville. We did this in partnership with Low Country Gullah and as a part of the Hilton Head Island Gullah celebration that NIPCA puts on every February. We also went digital for Griot's Corner in 2020 and 2021, and those stories were available and still are available on our website and also our YouTube page, and reached over 1,000 people. These digital stories, one of the cool things was to receive email from someone in California whose kid really loved one of the presentations, and also some gentlemen in Ohio who saw the book on Josh Gibson. It brought back memories of them hearing about Gibson when he was in the Negro Leagues. We actually were able to get back into the park for our Juneteenth Festival, which was a 3-day experience. The first day, June 17th, was a sleepover in the park with a slave dwelling project. Joe McGill is pictured there in the picture with the glasses. We had about 150 actually people in Barker Field for the virtual Juneteenth celebration that I'll talk about just a little bit. That's a partnership with 9 other African-American museums from across the country. That started in 2020 when we couldn't be outside in the park. And it's continued this year. And we were able to pull 900 people back into the park for our Saturday function with the Hamiltons pictured here. And we had people from all over the United States to come to this presentation. I think I saw some of y'all out there in the park, so thank you for coming. Those who were able to attend, we were really excited to be able to get that many people back in the park so they can know the kind of things that we're going to be doing moving forward. To get back to that virtual situation, again, this started out last year as a partnership between 6 museums, including ours, with organizations in Seattle, in Miami, in Detroit, Memphis, and Cincinnati. I think I might have said that. We decided to expand that this year to 10 museums, including the August Wilson Museum in Pittsburgh and California African American Museum in LA, the American Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and also, excuse me, the Homicide Research Center in New Orleans. We were able to have some key sponsorships from Chase Bank, T-Mobile, Hulu, Spotify. One of the cool things was to actually hear my voice on the Spotify commercial, probably the only time I'll be on Spotify ever. But we were promoting this event, and we had 50,000 people, which is probably a 10,000 person increase from last year to view through our site. And then the connection with Amazon, who offered the program to its 1.3 million employees. We picked up an extra 102,000 people who watched this on the blackfreedom.com.org site. And you can still go to blackfreedom.org to see this presentation now. One of the things we want to do as we move forward to get to the point we can actually put real structures in the park is to continue to add interpretive pieces for people to see now. Some of you have been out in the park and saw the QR codes that have been out in the park. We have 3 stations that have QR codes. Now this is a partnership with the Office of Cultural Affairs. We have a great relationship with them. And those QR codes, as of early August, have been scanned over 1,500 times. From about 30 states from across the country, and also France, United Kingdom, Ireland, and Puerto Rico. So those people were physically in the park and scanned those QR codes and learn more about Mitchellville. So that just shows the reach that the park is getting. And so what you see here is we started a design process to produce some bateau panels that'll be installed by the park. We wanted it to be end of the year. It's probably gonna be late January now. Some aspects of the fabrication had been slowed down because of the pandemic. And so we hope to unveil those roughly around late January or early February. We're working with Prown Design. Some of you were in the focus groups with the master plan, and Prown did the interpretive elements for the design. So what you see on the screen here is roughly what those panels will look like. They will be attached to Gullah culture. They will speak about different elements around Gullah culture and how that relates to Mitchellville. And so those will be along the existing pathway that lead to the beach. And so they won't get in the way of any kind of structural building that we'll do on the site once we've raised funds. And so we're also working with the town and the county on the MOU lease, and also some lease parcels on Beach City Road. Most of the people here know the long story about those parcels. At once upon a time, the notion that St. James Church might move to those areas. We worked with the council and the county to figure out a way so we can coexist and also do some swaps of property. Well, now that the church is not going to be there, we were working also with the town and the county to ensure that we can keep the parcels that we had put inside of our master plan, which was completed before the church decision came down. So that seems to be moving in a positive manner. We're working with the town manager to make those things happen. Also, we have a new MOU lease that's been approved and signed by both parties to manage that property. And we'll have another review on those parcels in 2023, where we'll look to extend that agreement. As part of the conversation with the parcels that are on Beach City Road. Mitchellville has agreed that we would keep the pathways open. There was some conversation about doing a pay station, but we agreed to keep those pathways open. So even while we're functioning, people will be able to walk through those pathways and make their way to the beach and come back towards Mitchellville Freedom Park. We will charge admission at the interpretive center, and we'll have some other opportunities for people to donate to the cause while they're in the park, and also revenue streams that will be coming from rentals of the outdoor parcels and also inside the interpretive center. And part of that agreement was the town would be amenable to maintain those park pathways so that people who are just walking out to the beach and leave their trash and boogie boards, they wouldn't all be on Mitchellville to make sure that those things get picked up. So here's a save the date for you. We have our Mitchellville Anniversary Forum that'll be happening virtually on exploremitchellville.org and on our Facebook page on October the 30th. That's from 10 to 2 p.m. It's called Blueprint of the Culture, and it'll be looking at the elements of Gullah culture that connect with Mitchellville. We are happy to say that our special guest will be Dr. Jessica Harris. So from those of you who have been watching High on the Hog on Netflix, there was an episode on the Low Country, and it came to our area, and Dr. Harris wrote High on the Hog a few years ago, and she is the impetus behind that show. And so she will be with us on that date as our special guest at the end of the program. Also, we will be doing our Mitchellville Holiday Lights ride-through again at the park. Last year, because we could not move around freely, we couldn't do our big holiday tree lighting, so we turned it into a ride-through. Now we have to keep it that way because we had about 2,500 people that came through the park on a 3-day period from 6 to 8 that first weekend in December. So while people were leaving the park, they kind of forced me to do this again. But basically, they told me, you better do this again, Ahmad. So that's what we're going to be doing. So the 4th, 5th, and 6th, as part of the historic holidays on Hilton Head celebration, you'll be able to ride through holiday lights. Last year was Season Greetings Around the World. This year, we got a different slant that you'll find out about very soon. But it'll be the same setup. People will be able to ride through. I encourage folks to come. We'll be opening up at 6, but I encourage people to get in line at 5:30. Because the line stretched from the park opening all the way down to 278 last year for all 3 nights. And so that was a very important program for us. And it sounds like something we'll be doing ongoing at the park. Of course, here are the places that you can find us. We are also on Instagram. You can just go to Mitchellville and get that information from us. I will stop sharing here before we go specifically to questions, because I just wanted to share a couple of quick things with the town council before we get going with this. I just wanted to point out a couple things that where we're finding success right now, and this, some of this is confidential, so I'll keep, I'll be kind of vague with some of the stuff. But we are moving in a very positive manner to create the infrastructure for the campaign. We have had some cursory conversations with a major international organization about funding. We are now discussing with their family foundation about the possibility of a 7-figure gift to Mitchellville. We think that'll be a nice domino effect for us when we can announce that we had funding from that entity. They will open the door to some others. We have established some national targets because we believe that's going to be the key way to do this. We're also looking at government funding. Possible government funding that are coming down. Right now, there's more than a few dollars at the government level, and we're trying to create access for those to help us to turn this Mitchellville Park into a reality. So those things are moving well for us. And we have a major meeting this Friday that may allow us to connect with some other people that can help us to raise this money. So most of my time is being spent right now trying to get that infrastructure together. We have recently hired a development officer to make sure that all our internal functions are straight. So when this money does come in, we're doing all the things that we need to do to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and getting set to pull in the kind of finances that we need to pull in to make this thing happen. There are a couple of things that we're still working through as far as, I'll say opportunities, I won't say challenges. Opportunities will be, we really are trying to extend our brand awareness. Anytime somebody hears about the story, they get excited about it. but just not enough people to know about us. And so over the course of the next few months, you'll be seeing more of us trying to hit for the fences in a few ways to get some more national exposure to this program. Anytime I leave this area or get on a Zoom or whatever to talk outside of this area about Mitchellville, people get excited about it and people buy into the story. We just want to extend that net even more so we can pull in the resources that we need to pull in to make this thing happen. Aside from that, we, of course, funding is going to be the main issue, but I do feel good about our proposal. I feel good about what we have to offer. We have a beautiful case statement that we've developed to send out to people. I'd like to thank some of the town council members for their input during our focus groups and looking at our plans last year, because you helped us to tailor things in a way that will make us even more attractive to people as we move forward. And so those things are going to be the things that we'll be tugging of warring about, we'll be moving through, but I think we have an opportunity to make some really key things happen. As for what we need from the council, we need your continued support. We have come to you for support letters to go up the grants. We come to you just to make sure we can have some things happen in the park that'll be necessary for us. I endeavor to have a full public-private partnership with the town, because I think we can benefit each other. The more things we can do together, the better off Mitchellville will be. And we really honestly believe that this project can be economic boom, not just for the island, but for the low country, the region, and the state. And so with that, I will stop and let you ask any questions that you have, but we have to offer so far. And thank you again for the opportunity to present to you today.
Ahmad, thank you for that presentation and update. It sure looks like you've regained your momentum from the pandemic effects, and that's good news. Committee, what comments do you have or questions? Glenn?
Thank you. Ahmad, thank you for the detailed and enthusiastic report. It's clear to me that we've got the right leadership there, and I applaud you for that leadership and look forward to it continuing. You have talked about the beginnings of the trying to draw in major donors, and I won't put you to task on that, but we do want to be kept up to date with what the success is there. I do have one question though. Back on one of the early slides you had, you showed an aerial photograph, and that aerial photograph had some yellow lines on there that looked like they were the outlines of the cores of the structures of where buildings were in Mitchellville. Is that correct?
Yes, the lines showed the grid that Katie and her team pulled together, and the overlay was the park design. So you did see some elements of our park design that have the homes that we're going to try to recreate, at least in a ghosted structure near Beach City Road. Yes, that is correct.
So those are not the locations or the foundations of the actual homes that were there, rather they are your proposed plan for the park.
Well, those actually, the houses, which would have been on the lower left of that image, are actually on the locations where we believe those houses would have been historically in Mitchellville.
I think that's very meaningful that you've been able to identify that, and that'll be part of the story moving forward. Because in the past, I had heard that a good bit of historic Mitchellville was now underwater, whereas what you're showing here is it's not underwater, it's right there in the park site, which is terrific. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We do have quite a few homes or outlines. I'll use the technical term that Katie uses. We see these blobs underneath the ground with the sonar, and it tells us where structures would have been. And we are pretty solid on those 8 to 9 structures that we have at the edge of the park, that we'll be putting them right where houses would have been at the actual community site.
Other comments or questions? Bill?
Ahmad, I'm really impressed with your energy, your enthusiasm. I think it's contagious. The targets that you have set forth, I think are all well within our reach. And I join in your thinking that if you continue to do as well as you are doing now, and there's no reason why that shouldn't occur, I really do think from a financial standpoint, we will have a going concern in the years to come. A national treasure, and you're rebirthing it, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harkins. Appreciate that.
Tom, I have a question after the committee members have asked theirs.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? I have one of each. Ahmad, I think you've shown your willingness and ability to build coalitions that are not only regional, but national. And I think that's really a strong element of the success of Mitchellville, because it truly is a national story, not a regional story. How are the finances holding up through the pandemic?
Pretty well. We did have to readjust some things because we couldn't do some elements that we wanted to do during COVID. But I got to say that donations stayed pretty steady. And we've seen a nice amount of money come in from our supporters. We've been able to secure some grants. Like for instance, we were just able to receive another $30,000 from the Breed Love Foundation to do educational programs. And so that'll cover us for the next year. That National Trust grant will allow us to go after some larger national grants, because we have proven that we can get those kind of funds towards Mitchellville. So I think that bodes well for us coming up in the future. And the continued support of ATAX, who's allowed us to market the events that we're doing, to put things out there that people can see and get excited about. And so I feel good about where we are. We got a couple of pledges. We want to come in so we can round out our revenues this year. But as far as our assets, we're in really good shape actually. And I look forward to what the next year is going to bring us if we can actually start the campaign next year. I think we'll be in good shape to move in a positive manner to get this money sooner rather than later. To be practical, I'm telling people 3 to 5 years. I think that's the appropriate thing to do. But if we get some of these angel donors to come in, that timeline could move up to 2 to 3.
Oh, that's good. And any nonprofit that survives the pandemic is really to be congratulated, and it shows the resilience of the organization, and I think the resonance of the story. And congratulations on the National Trust Award too. That you continue to build these affirmations on how applicable and important the story is by bringing new donors and these grant and trust awards to the organization. One final question, Ahmad. As you know, there has been some discussion about Fort Howell and the likelihood of perhaps restoring Fort Howell to some degree, yet to be determined. Fort Howell seems to be an important part of the Mitchellville story as well. Is there any way that there can be a combination of efforts between Fort Howell and Mitchellville?
Well, we are already working in concert with the Hilton Head Land Trust on a couple of programs, including a tour called Roots of Reconstruction, which of course, COVID has kind of slowed that down right now. We haven't been able to do those. But we've had some conversations with the Land Trust about making sure that we can coordinate efforts. I think it'll be a beautiful thing for us to get those things together. I got to tell you, one of my unwritten goals is something I would love to be able to do is to really connect all of the history on Beach City Road in a meaningful manner. I mean, that's the most historic street on the island. And we've had some conversations about sometime in the near future, making sure that we have people come in the area, that we're making sure they see Fort Howell, making sure they visit the churches along Beach City Road. If we can get representatives to at least, give them a little bit of information there. I think it only strengthened what we have to offer for as cultural heritage tourism. And we're looking forward to, I think it's a great idea if Fort Howell is able to do some revamping out there, because it only strengthened what we have to offer on that road. I
agree. Alex.
Yes. Afternoon, Ahmad, and I echo comments of my colleagues as far as congratulating you and your team. I'm going to, I guess, throw a little different metric on the situation. Okay. Every time I visit Mitchellville, as it is today, which we all know there's not much there, I run into somebody. And 9 times out of 10 is somebody that I don't know. Okay. And they're not from here. And they are just thirsty of the story. And they leave wanting more. So I know that we've got a long road ahead of us, but I want to just keep reminding us that the potential is there. Okay. So keep doing what you're doing. And you got my support along the way.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Appreciate that.
David,
Thank you, Tom. Ahmad, good work. I don't think we can underestimate the value of your finding those bricks. The fact that something actually remains that people can look at and connect to is incredible for Mitchellville. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we're really happy about it.
When I was doing a development up in Charleston near Snee Farm and Boone Hall, there was a brick kiln, colonial brick kiln on the property that I was developing. Do you have any idea where these bricks came from that are on Hilton Head?
Katie is working on that for us right now. We do know that they are indicative of the time period, potentially made on island, but we're not exactly sure. But they would have been made during the 1860s to be part of that based on their makeup.
Yeah, I wonder about the island because I haven't run across any clay on the island, but that doesn't mean anything really. So I'm just interested in that. But again, my point is that being able to look and maybe not touch, but having something so tangible is a home run, I think, for the museum and the Mitchellville development. Congratulations, that's great.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Oh, and one other thing. You mentioned Beach City Road. That triggered a thought. I don't know what the long-term plans might be, but maybe town ought to start thinking about how the Beach City Road as a historical roadway tells part of the story, or vice versa, how the different things on Beach City Road tell a story that will amplify what Mitchellville is trying to tell.
We will welcome that and of course help to make that a reality. Anything we can do to put some wayfinding on Beach City Road, we'll definitely do that.
Ahmad, your story continues to grow. That's it's nothing but potential certainly ahead. Thank you for your presentation and keep it going, Ahmad. We look forward to these updates periodically. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Lennox. We appreciate the time and opportunity, and we'll keep you posted.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second agenda item under new business is a presentation from John Troyer, our finance director, on the town's most recent financials. I see you, John. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will share my screen and certainly feel free to stop with any questions. Okay. From the beginning. This is for the first 3 months this is July, August, and September, the first 3 months ending September 30th. A year ago plus, August 2020, we had some key issues, and I think they're still very applicable today, but suffice it to say that we still work on building reserves and diversifying our revenue streams, and so we appreciate town council's leadership in those two areas. June 30th, we can report that our revenues came back. Some spending was held or deferred, and so far so good. And so we were glad to finish out June 30th, 2021. Gives us a good starting point for this year. Last month, we were able to report strong revenues. Here's our revenues for the first 2 months, July and August. You can see that they're better than the previous 3 years. Look at September, and some of what we would have normally expected in September was collected early in August. And so this kind of balances out a little bit in September. So this is, we had a temporary boost in August and kind of balancing out a little bit in September. Still early. If you look at the picture for the full year, a lot yet to go. We're only through with 3 months and we've got 9 to go. So a lot of activity in front of us. Year to date though, so far so good. We're better than the last 3 years at this time, and we're happy to report that. So,
And this is the important slide.
yeah, a good start to the year. Yeah, this early on, our revenue picture can, small changes can seem like a high percentage, and then as the year progresses, it moderates and settles down, and so you'll see our trends more defined as we go. And I think this is a terrific start to the year. Another picture of, we still have a long way to go, but we've got this is where we want to be at the first 3 months. Property taxes, you wanted a little bit more in this report, but you can see here 2022 barely even shows up on this, and a lot of this is yet to come in December through March. And so much more to come, and we'll give much more detailed information here coming soon. Our other monthly, comparing to the last 3 years, property taxes were right in line, but it's still very early. And just another graph that shows how far we have yet to go with our property taxes for a normal year. I would like to note that we had a monthly meeting with our friends at the county, and it looks like all systems are go for getting the property tax bills out this month, which we're appreciative of. That timing is going to be to our favor. The schedule just basically says we're 2% collected on property taxes, and that's about where we should be at this early stage. Year-to-date collections. It's just the same group of revenues that we like to look at each month to kind of test the pulse of how we're doing on the revenue side. You can see from tax increment financing a little bit down, local aid tax substantially up, state aid tax, we haven't collected anything yet. We'll get some this month, very soon, next week or so. Real estate transfer fee up, but then stormwater down, road usage fee down, electric franchise fee down. Quite a mixed bag, and I think it's real early in the year, but if you put it all together, we're 18% up from last year, which is a strong start and a good indicator that we're on the right track for this year. I would like to note
Can I
that.
interrupt you a second? This is Glenn.
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit more about the minus 46% on stormwater. Why are we down so far on that?
It's just a function of who happened to pay their stormwater fees out of the 2% compared to last year. And that doesn't really surprise me because we're going to get the vast majority of our stormwater coming up in December, January, and February. So that's another indicator that this early in the year we can have what seems to be a wide swing, and yet that will settle down and moderate as the year goes. So
I guess I really don't understand. I really don't understand how the finance in that area is 46% less than it was in the previous years. It just is, but and I guess I have to accept that, but I don't understand it. Thank you.
And maybe next month we'll go back and I'll make a note and we'll talk a little bit more about stormwater revenue next month, and we'll show a little bit more detail. And I think you'll get more comfort as we go. I feel stormwater is going to be one of our more dependable revenues and more predictable revenues. It's just that if you pick any one month, it's hard to tell where we're going to be. But if you pick at the end of the year, we've got a pretty good eye for where that's going to be at the end of the year.
John, the stormwater fees appear on the property tax bills, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And I'm a little surprised we would see any stormwater revenue in these 3 months at all, because the tax bills don't go out until later this year.
Right. The tax bills have not gone out, and so these are related to previous years.
So
And
these
so
are,
it's,
these could be delinquent fees coming in?
right, that's exactly what it is. So these are stormwater fees from previous years that were unpaid that are now paid this year. So
To Glenn's point, and it's a good one, it's a function of there being less delinquencies this year, apparently, than there were last year.
right, and I think to some extent because of all the real estate transactions, and when there's a real estate transaction, then we get caught up on the property taxes and the stormwater. That helps keep people current on the property taxes, but it leaves less money in the delinquency to collect later.
Okay.
And just if we compare this schedule with this schedule last month, our number last month was 51% up, and we knew that was high. We knew that there was some state business license receipts that we got in August of this year that in normal years we would get in September. And so that gave us a picture that August was really high at 51% up. But now here that September comes as we're back down to 19%. And you'll see this moderate as we go. But yeah, still strong start. You look at local aid tax, 36% up. There's an indicator, beach fees, 36% up. Strong start to some of these. So EMS revenues, 18% up, permits, 30% up. All very, very positive, and I'm not concerned about the negative on the stormwater. They'll make that up. And we'll keep an eye on the electric franchise fee. That's kind of a function of, sometimes it's a function of weather too. How much do people run their air conditioning? And so it's also a function of the economy, but we'll keep an eye on that.
John, and this year-over-year comparison now is a year-over-year from last year being very, very strong. So this is up 18.9% from a year ago, which was equally as strong.
We were surprised at a couple of things last year, that once the economy started to open back up, how quickly it came back from April, May. And then we were also surprised that instead of the tourist season really kind of slowing down on Labor Day, last year, there wasn't really a slowdown on Labor Day. And so that shoulder season was really extended. And so, yeah, we're favorably comparing to last year's good numbers.
And I know this question has been asked before, and I think that I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. The increase in building permits, is that primarily driven by residential, or is there some commercial in there?
It's both. And so I'll make a note and we'll get a little bit more detail on permits next month, but we're seeing activity on both sides. The residential, very, very steady and strong. The commercial can be big blocks on the permit side. And so it can be up and down in any one month. But it was strong in 2021, and it's starting off even stronger in 2022. This is comparing to all of last year's. this is year-to-date, the same revenues, and comparing it to last year's actuals. And I think it's an indicator that we're still early in the year, but we're 9 million collected compared to our 86 million collected of this group of revenues. And so we're 10% in. And so we've got 90% to go. And if the months were all evenly distributed, then it would be 25% of the year. So you can see that this seasonality is lower on the first 3 months of the year. And so we'll make that up as the property taxes come in. And last month, we were at 7.2%. So out of a full year's worth of collections, we collected 3% in September. It's all moving forward, but another kind of a small step forward. We split out on this schedule, transfers in. We'll do a little bit more, but what I wanted to do is just to kind of give an indicator of how much transfers in compared to our revenues. Regular revenues up 23%, transfers in 10% in our net activity. But we'll talk more about that in a bit. This is the one that I think is more important, is that our revenues are 12% complete compared to the budget, and our transfers in are 23% complete. And so our transfers are more steady and less seasonal than our revenues, than our regular revenues. And that helps moderate some of the seasonality and just to keep the lights on as we wait on property taxes. General fund expenses, we see similar patterns, but it can be a little bit different amongst the different months. For the first 3 months, you can see we're comparable to the first 3 months of the last 3 years. You can see the trend line. How do we get started? We're starting very well and as expected. I think that's our phrase I would use, is we're starting as expected for the year. Year-to-date spending, slightly ahead of last year. Last year, we really purposefully held back a number of different projects, including raises, including the classification compensation study, including some capital, and including some other landscape and other improvements until we had a better sense of the revenue. And then we tried to pick that up later on in the year. This year we started, the raises aren't scheduled until January, but as far as capital spending, landscape improvements, just trying to dress up the island, that's all happening now. And so we're able to go and do and deploy the budget as it's intended. And I think that just helps the island, it helps the economy, and it helps do what we're supposed to do. A good start right where we would predict we would be in spending for the first 3 months, and you can see the rest of the year. Spending by category, we're up 10%. We won't finish that high. And so that number will moderate as we go as well. Just a couple of different things. Town council manager, 44%. It is not going to end the year. There's just some oddities of the timing, and we were very purposeful last year about holding back some spending. So this year is more normal. Community development, it's under budget, but it's going to moderate, and it will catch up, and it won't be that far under last year. I think one of the things that we can look at is public projects and facilities are 26% up, and that really is a function of the spending that we do to improve the island is going and doing in the first 3 months. And last year we were holding back. And so I look at that as a very positive sign that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as far as keeping the island as well as we can. And so townwide, direct your eyes towards that with 31% up, but It includes higher insurance premiums. We have a new insurance premium for cyber protection. We have higher insurance for the Low Country Celebration Park. And we also have a new item to take $125,000 from the general fund budget and contribute it toward the CIP. So that's a real positive, but it shows up in our increase year over year.
John,
So-
any meaningful variances in these expense categories versus budget?
And we'll have that coming up.
Okay.
The next slide, but if you look at, we're 25% of the year, and only one category, the sheriff and beach services, are at 26%, so a little bit ahead. But we expect busier times on the beach services for July, August, and September than we would in October, November, December. And so, and also from the town-wide, you can see that this is at 34% collected. Well, we pay our largest property tax, our property insurance premiums at the start of the year for the whole year. And so that's going to show up as a higher than you would expect at the 25% level. So all of these different categories are operating where we would expect and within the budget. And so we don't anticipate any need for adjustment from what was expected when the budget was approved. And it's just a reminder, we're 25% through the year, 22% spent. Our use of reserves, and so this is just a reminder, we're super thankful to have the reserves that we do to enable the town to go and do and perform the services and improvements that are in the budget. We don't have to wait for the collections because the reserves are there. You can look at the first 3 months. We needed to use reserves in July. We put some money back in August, and we needed to use some in September. It's a mixed bag, and it will settle out as we proceed through the year. And so year to date is more of a better picture. And if you look at the 2022 numbers compared to the last 3 years, we are better this year on net than the last 3 years. Another way to look at that same information, this green line is revenues and transfers less your expenditures. And so 2022 is better than the last 3 years through September 30th. So good start to the year. Here's what our picture has been for the last 3 years, and it's just 3 months into it. But again, we're better than we were starting off the last 3 years. You can see any one month we might have some variation, revenues and expenses, but when you start to look at the year-to-date numbers, you see more of a predictable pattern. And so we're starting to gain that predictable pattern. Last year, the red is the spending and the green are the receipts, and you can see that it was March before we shifted from a net spend to net inflow, and we ended the year with a net inflow. So we ended the year on a positive note. General fund results, revenues and transfers in were up. There's our 18%, expenditures up, and our net numbers we drew from our reserves 3.2 million compared to drawing from our reserves 3.3 million temporarily just for this part of the year. So we're happy for that improvement. Monthly beach fees, we're 3 months in. We're off to a good start. You can see this year is better than the last 2 years, and a long way to go. And so October is a quarterly that many of our beach fee collectors will remit in October. And so October, January, and April are our key months when we talk about beach fees and H-tax fees. But a good start. H-tax, again, that was the one that was hit the worst when the pandemic started. We dropped from 7.5 million to 6.3 million. to finish out 2020, but by the time 2021 came around, we were back up again and even more so for 2021. So I think that's a real success story and real resilience story on our hospitality collections. This year, hospitality, great start. August is higher than the last 2 years. September higher than the last 2 years. And year to date, you can see it's early in the year, but we are ahead of both 21 and 20.
And John, this is probably the first year in a long time that we have inflation built into HTAX collections,
Yes.
as prices island-wide are on the rise.
Yes. And so that helps our collections. So key issues for town council for 2022, all of these are still the same. We're going to keep an eye on revenues and expenses, and we're going to go ahead with our capital spending. We're going to go ahead with merit as planned in January. None of that has changed. I did add one item this year is to use the stimulus funding to help the island. And so thank you to town council for approving the budget amendment to include the stimulus funding. And we're full speed ahead to deploy that to help the economy. So we're excited about that. We did get a question last month about the real estate transfer fee. So I've got just a few pieces of information about that. The real estate transfer fee is effective until December 31st, 2024. And so it's only 38 months away, but we are certainly thankful to collect that. The intent, you can take your time and read the whole thing, but really there's an emphasis on a natural state and not overly invaded with permanent structures. And so there's a sense of green space, if we can, with the real estate transfer fee. Purpose, this is just an excerpt of the purpose, and so it talks about to acquire land and to be held for either the public or in perpetuity, so for a lot of different reasons. And here's part B of the purpose, and so to acquire already developed land or developmental rights in order to convert it to a public use or restore the property to open space, or redefine that property in accordance to the town's current comprehensive plan. So you can see the different purposes that were outlined for that real estate transfer fee. And then it's a 0.25% on real estate transactions. I thought this was interesting. I look back at the last 10 years and you see a nice upward trend on our real estate transfer fee collections. So in 10 years, it looks positive upward slope. You put a trend line on that and try to predict, well, what do you think our 2021 collections would have been? And you can kind of see that's linear. And let's take a look at what 2020 actually was. And so I think this gives kind of a picture of just how much of a good year 2021 was from a real estate perspective, and that many transactions and that many dollars. And so certainly can report positive activity in 2021. Did take a little bit longer look, a little longer view. So if you add in from 2002 to 2021, we did kind of have this boom in 2005, 6, and 7, or 2004, 5, 6, and 7, high levels of activity, and then it slowed down. But the current trend is really strong, and we'll see how it goes. Just for people's information, here's a chart of the numbers if you're interested, but I won't bore you with the numbers.
John, those numbers are fiscal years, not
Yes.
calendar.
Yeah, I took these from the fiscal year. So there might be other people who keep those on calendar years, but the general trend should be similar. And so there has been talk about an extension. It was originally established in 1990, October 1st, 1990, and amended in 91, 93, 94, 95, and 2002. So town council has that authority to make an amendment. And that really concludes my prepared remarks, but we'll get you some more. We've got financial statements coming right on the heels of this, and so we'll have more detailed information about the current month and the current 3 months in our financial statements, and we certainly would welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, John. Committee, what questions or comments do you have for John?
I have a question, if I might. First, John, I think that in recent months, you've been sending us this PowerPoint before the meeting. I don't remember seeing it. Did it go out?
And that would just be me. And no, I don't think I got that out. And I'll try to get that out so it's not all new to you.
Thank you. That would be useful. That's not a severe criticism. It's just a request, if you will. And then secondly, on the business license fee change in structure, are we up to speed with where we should be in terms of our systems to process the changes in those fees?
Yes, we have been very, very busy. Our business license office has been working with our software provider, been working closely with the state and the MASC to make sure that we are ready, and we're working closely with the property managers, and so we're full speed ahead and feeling good about it. There's much work to do between now and December 31st, but we just did some software testing last week that was successful. So we were that was a really good milestone.
Thank you. It would be useful to have periodic reports on that as well. Those are my questions, Tom.
Okay, Glenn, thank you. Any others? John, would you make a comment in as much as we are about 3 weeks away from an off-year election? Would you comment on where we are pertaining to the local option sales tax?
Okay. Yeah, there's voters will have the opportunity to make a decision. It'll be on the ballot November the 2nd. It's basically a trade of sales tax, an additional 1% sales tax for a partial reduction in property taxes. And it does give the option to each jurisdiction for a portion of that. So basically 71% has to be toward property tax relief. 29% is up to the legislative body of each jurisdiction. So citizens will have a chance to vote coming soon.
Okay. Is there a countywide education initiative about to be launched?
That is my understanding. I understand that that information is forthcoming, and we have had conversations with our representatives of the county, and I know they have been very, very busy to get together information, and I would expect to see their information out very, very soon.
Yeah, I think the fuse is getting pretty short on that. So hopefully that'll be out. I think from the people that I've spoken with, there seems to be a lot of the voters totally unaware of what's coming. Any other questions or comments for John on the first quarter financials?
And Mr. Sanford, thank you for your comments, and I'll get this copy out here when we finish this meeting, and then next month we'll get them out beforehand.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other business to come before this committee? Any final comments or questions? If there is none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all. We stand adjourned.